Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we're visiting the Swordsmith Village, where the epic fight between Muichiro, the Mist Hashira and Gyokko, Upper Moon 5 takes place. We also get to see Muichiro's real power, and his hidden past. So, if you're curious, make sure you grab your drinks, smash the like and subscribe button, let's go! After engaging in a brief fight with Hentengu, Muichiro gets blasted out of the building he was with a gust of wind, sending him hurtling into the forest. After landing safely, while making his way back to Tanjiro, he sees a fish-like demon attacking a young swordsmith, Kotestu. Judging from the demon's presence, Muichiro realizes this fish was just a summon by a demon. But, Muichiro decides to keep on going because he thought saving Kotestu was low priority and he had to prioritize saving more skilled swordsmith. Just as he was about to leave, he remembers Tanjiro's words, helping others also ends up being beneficial for you at the end of the day. Remembering the words of Tanjiro, he slashes the fish-like demon and tells the boy to leave. But even after cutting the fish's neck, it just crumbles and then regenerates. Realizing cutting down the demon won't work, he decides to break the pot on its back instead. This seemed to do the trick, as the demon begins to disintegrate, revealing the summoned source of power was from the pot, created with a blood technique. After being saved, Kotetsu repeatedly thanks the hashira and apologizes for previously insulting him, because earlier on, Kotetsu had insulted Muichiro, in an argument involving the key of a training doll, though Muichiro seems to have forgotten their encounter. Kotetsu then begs Muichiro to save Kozo, who is under attack, and Haganezuka, who has been working non-stop, telling him if they delay, it might be too late. Muichiro attempts to move on to his top priority. He then remembers a moment he had with Kagaya and Amane Yubuyashiki when he was injured. Kagaya had offered him something to focus on in times of distress, one's survival. Carrying Kotetsu on his shoulder, Muichiro speeds through the forest to find the swordsmiths. Arriving just in time, Muichiro quickly destroys a fish-like demon which was attacking Kozo. He then asks for another sword since the one he was using was damaged. As Kozo was about to walk into the shed, Muichiro stops him, and says, "It's coming." Just then, from the bushes, Upper Moon 5, Gyokko emerges, saying,
"Hey, you noticed me. I guess that means your pillar."
He then tells Muichiro and the swordsmiths to give him a minute, and have a look at his artwork, before he kills them. What he referred to as his artwork consisted of various skilled swordsmiths, stuffed into a pot, swords sticking into them, with them screaming. Not even giving him a chance to finish, Muichiro tells him to shut it, and immediately attempts to slash off Gyokko's head. But before Muichiro could behead him, he vanishes into his pot, and reappears on another pot. Realizing he can move from pot to pot, Muichiro starts destroying the pots. Angry at this, Gyokko calls Muichiro an uncultured swine, who lacks the intelligence to appreciate his art. Muichiro again then tries to behead him, but before he could get an opening, Gyokko unleashes a move, Fish Assassin, 1,000 needles, which summons 2 gold fishes from his pot and shoots several needles from its mouth. One aiming at the hashira, the other at the swordsmith. In an attempt to protect the 2 swordsmiths, Muichiro speeds in front of them, taking the hit. He then demands the smiths flee the scene and they run away. Amused at the sight of his opponent repeatedly skewered by his spines, Gyokko asks Muichiro if he feels the poison paralyzing him. The demon's words suddenly remind Muichiro of a memory, but he is unable to recall it completely. Tingling with excitement, Gyokko wonders what kind of peace he'll make with Muichiro, since he's an hashira. Muichiro then tells him to shut up, and attempts to cut his neck. But before he could, Gyokko tells him his words are useless and unleashes a technique, Water Basin of Hell, from a pot made out of his flesh, trapping the hashira in a blob of water, shaped like Gyokko's pot. Muichiro tries cutting through but is unable to. Gyokko, satisfied seeing him unable to breathe, deems he has obstructed the greatest weapon of a demon slayer, their breath. Gyokko tells Muichiro that when he imagines seeing his face in pain, it brings him joy, and that with the village destroyed, the core will be weakened significantly and they can soon move on to killing Kagaya Yubuyashiki. He then leaves Muichiro to die of suffocation. Running out of oxygen, Muichiro attempts to pierce the pot. He uses mist breathing, first form, low clouds, distant haze, but he's unable to. Believing it is over, Muichiro thanks Kagaya for cheering him on and he'll die now. But just as he's about to give up, he sees Tanjiro, who asks him why he thinks so, and says, "Nobody knows what the future holds." Muichiro is surprised because Tanjiro never said those words to him, and wonders who said so. Elsewhere, Gyokko finds a shed and kills the swordsmith protecting it, where he sees Hotari polishing and admiring a blade he has been given to work on. Not believing him to be the village chief, Gyokko launches a demon at him. It causes severe lacerations to the smith, but Hotari remains focused on doing his task. Angered at the smith not acknowledging his presence, Gyokko resolves to break his concentration out of spite. Meanwhile, Muichiro's vision starts to blur as he slips away, due to lack of oxygen. Just as he was about to give up, Tanjiro reappears, telling him he's the only one who can decide his fate and he shouldn't give up, because someone will eventually come for him. Muichiro tells Tanjiro that no one is going to come for him because they are all weaker than him. He subconsciously overestimated his strength because he was in hashira and now is dying from the mistakes he made. Just then, in an attempt to save the hashira, Kotetsu stabs the water with a knife, but he is unable to break the hashira free. Muichiro wonders why Kotetsu is helping him, believing it to be of higher priority to flee and protect the village chief. A small fish demon then appears, slashing and stabbing the young swordsmith. Muichiro begs Kotetsu to leave him and flee, but he removes his mask and blows air bubbles into the pot. As Muichiro breathes in the air, the image of Tanjiro becomes that of someone else, who tells him, people are living creatures who can draw out unbelievable strength for someone else's sake. After hearing this, he knows what to do. He summons his strength and uses Breath of Mist, the second form, Layered Mist, and breaks hair breaking out. He begins coughing due to the water in his lungs. Muichiro then has a brief flashback of helping his dad cut down trees. He keeps coughing, the numbness from the attack still affecting him. He then thinks of how he could have died if he didn't break out. The voice of Kagaya interrupts this thought, saying, "Don't think about things too strictly. The moment you regain yourself, you can get stronger." While holding an injured Kotetsu, a fish demon attacks. Fortunately, he's able to cut down the demon, even though he's still recovering from almost drowning. Another flashback is seen of how Muichiro's mom died from a cold, which turned into bronchitis, and how his father on a stormy night while looking for medicinal herbs for their sick mother fell down a cliff. Back from the flashback, Kotetsu tells Muichiro to leave him and go protect the blade the swordsmith was working on. The flashback of Muichiro's past then begins. At the age of 10, Muichiro's parents died. By the age of 11, he and his twin older brother, Yuichiro, were alone and lived isolated in the woods. He remembers the words of his brother, "Compassion to humans is useless. No matter what good you do for someone, it won't do you any good." Muichiro tries reminding him of their father's words, "Doing good for others will come back to help you." His brother refuses and instead tells him that the words of a man who died helping others is useless. In an outburst, Yuichiro tells Muichiro that their father was the cause of his death, and if only he didn't go out to get herbs, he wouldn't have died. Muichiro tells him not to talk like that, but Yuichiro, not wanting to listen, shuts him up and says, "The Mu in Muichiro is the in and invalid, and having that conversation won't bring their parents back." Muichiro recalls how his brother was a frank person, and living with him was hell because he thought Yuichiro hated him and was a cold person. One day, Amane Yubuyashiki comes to recruit them to the Demon Slayer Corps. Unfortunately, Muichiro's excitement was opposed by Yuichiro's unwelcoming and rejecting reception. In an outburst, Yuichiro revealed that he blamed the death of their parents on their hard-working and selfless nature, and drove Amane Yubuyashiki away, sometimes even pouring water on her. One night, while they were asleep, a demon opens the door and attacks Yuichiro. The demon tells them to shut up. Their lives were useless, and whether or not they exist changes nothing. Looking into the deep red eye of the demon, Muichiro felt something he had never before. It was intense anger. Muichiro used the tools they had to incapacitate the demon. By sunrise, the demon withered into ash, and Muichiro dragged himself back to the house. There, he found Yuichiro near death, praying to the heavens that his brother might survive. He laid next to his brother and grasped his hand as he passed away. "If you ever do something to help others, you can bring out infinite strength." After hearing those words, Muichiro then awakens his demon slayer mark and gets ready to battle. A scene is shown of Yuichiro talking to Muichiro. He apologizes to Muichiro, saying, "No matter how virtuous you are in life, the gods and Buddha won't protect you in the end, so I thought I had to protect you. Sorry for not being nice to you. I never had the capacity to do that. I guess being nice to people is something only chosen ones can do." Back at the shed, Gyokko is angry at the fact that Hotari won't stop sharpening the blade, even after so many cuts and losing an eye. Suddenly, Muichiro blade comes close to his head and almost slashes it off, but he's able to escape into his pot. Gyokko is shocked to see his opponent had managed to escape the water, but adds that it is just a testament to his concentration. He notices the mark on Muichiro's face and recalls from what Muzan said, Tanjiro also had one, but he's still unable to understand how Muichiro could have a relaxed face, wasn't paralyzed from his attack, but instead wounded him, with an even faster attack than before. Muichiro charges at the demon, who points a vase at the hashira and uses octopus vase hell, creating giant tentacles that grab him. Muichiro tries cutting the tentacles but is unable to, snapping his sword in the process. The tentacles grow bigger, destroying the swordsmith's shed and even sends Hotari flying, but despite this he picks up his stone and continues sharpening the sword. Gyokko is surprised at this and wonders if he's even sane. He then concludes he'll take care of the pillar first and the swordsmith second. As the tentacles grab Kanamori and Muichiro, Gyokko claims he let his guard down too much, and is definitely going to crush and absorb them this time. To his surprise, Muichiro slices through the tentacles with a new sword Kanamori had handed him earlier on when his previous one broke. Muichiro thanks him, but he says he just followed the notes from Muichiro's previous swordsmith, who had a heart attack. Gyokko tells Muichiro, no matter how many swords you use, it won't change the outcome. Muichiro then has a flashback of his swordsmith. He tells Muichiro he's worried about him. He asks him, would anyone ever understand you? How much you've gone through. How close you've cut it. How uneasy you are because of your amnesia and how you worked so hard, you started coughing blood. Will anyone understand? Whenever I see the sword I made for you, tears come out of my eyes. I don't have long to live, but you're making me worry. Muichiro apologizes to his swordsmith, to Studo, and tells him he's sorry for making him worry. He's fine now. As the tentacles start growing out, Muichiro uses Breath of Mist, 5th form, Sea of Clouded Mist, cutting through the tentacles, attempting to behead Gyokko, but he escapes into his pod. Gyokko comments on how quickly Muichiro cut his tentacles, but tells him he'll be unable to catch up with the speed of his pods. To Gyokko's surprise, Muichiro tells him his senses has dulled, probably due to him living for hundreds of years. It was then Gyokko realized Muichiro had actually slashed his neck almost halfway. Muichiro tells him that the next time, his head is coming off because he's done playing Gyokko's dumb pot game. Gyokko in annoyance tells Muichiro not to joke with him. Muichiro says he's just stating the truth, he's just going to die when he cuts his head off. And he's unexpectedly feeling good for some reason. Gyokko just replies him, telling him even though he has lived 10 years or so, his looks are downright disgusting. He can't understand elegance because he's an uneducated bumpkin, a cockroach which when given a book can't read, and Muichiro would not be able to reach his neck. Muichiro reminds him he just did a while ago. Gyokko claims that such desperate childish provocation will not get to him, only for the hashira to wonder if his vases are slanting to one side, calling it shoddy workmanship. An enraged Gyokko unleashes his blood demon technique, 10,000 gliding clayfish. Muichiro uses mist breathing, 6th form, lunar dispersing mist, slicing all of the fish instantly. The upper rank is surprised at his speed but remains confident, since the fish spray poison upon getting cut. Muichiro then uses mist breathing, 3rd form, scattering mist splash and diverts the poisonous cloud away from him. He moves towards Gyokko, who's still shocked, and cuts his neck, only to find out he had molted, leaving only his skin. Muichiro pleads with him to stop running to the trees. Gyokko then reveals his true form, telling Muichiro he's the third person to see it. Unimpressed, Muichiro gives sarcastic remarks. Gyokko tells him to shut up. Once he gets serious, no one leaves alive. He talks about how his scales were harder than diamond and tells Muichiro to prostrate before his perfect beauty, but Muichiro just keeps quiet and reminds him he had earlier told him to shut up. Gyokko attempts to punch Muichiro, but he dodges to the trees and tells Gyokko his stench was so much, he thought his nose was going to melt off. Gyokko compliments his own body, talking about how his godlike powers which turns everything he touches into fish, how his body is perfect. Muichiro just smiles and says, you can be flashy as you like, but it's useless if you can't touch me. Muichiro recalls the memory of how he almost died, how he saw maggots infesting he and his beloved brother's body, how he would have died if he wasn't rescued. Even after losing his memories, his body never forgot, the rage remained with him. He remembers how he trained hard, he started coughing blood. It was so he could exterminate all demons. As he remembers this, Gyokko tells him to behold his seriousness and unleashes his blood demon technique, Deadly Scales of War. He tells Muichiro how his scales makes his movement unpredictable and wonders how he'll cook the hashira up, maybe sticking his head to a beautiful fish. Muichiro tells him it's over and uses mist breathing, 7th form, haze. Gyokko attempts to throw a punch, but Muichiro suddenly vanishes. He reappears behind him in a haze, but Gyokko fails to hit him again. Muichiro appears in front of him, but the demon fails again to hit his mark. The upper rank looks around the forest as it appears to be covered in a thick mist, with the hashira hidden somewhere. He reappears in front of Gyokko once more, but the demon misses. Muichiro mocks him for thinking he was the only one who did not take the fight seriously in the beginning. He gets close to the demon whilst obscured by the mist and swings his blade up, decapitating Gyokko. Gyokko sees Muichiro and tries to kill him, but sees that everything is now upside down. His severed head bounces along the ground, shocking him as he had not realized he had been decapitated. Gyokko begins to rant that this should not have, boasting of his power and muttering that he is superior to all worthless humans. Annoyed by his empty threats, Muichiro slices the head and tells him to go to hell already. And with that, Gyokko, Upper Moon 5 was killed by Muichiro. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, with post notifications on so you'll never miss our new uploads. Thanks for 1K subscribers guys. See you next time.